Hey, what's up, you guys? You're watching Team APS, Paul here, and it is that time of year again. And by that time of year, I mean the time of year whenever Konami says we may or may not get a ban list because there actually aren't defined dates for those things anymore, but I'm not bitter. The point is, a ban list should be coming soon, no sooner than April 2nd. So, yeah, this is the time when a lot of people ask me, Paul, what do you think is going to get hit? What should happen? What shouldn't happen? What should come back? All that stuff. Now, before we hop in, if you haven't already subscribed and you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you. We're almost at 125,000 subs, so make it happen. Okay, yeah, the format right now. What do I think? Well, I would actually say that recently we've had one of the better Yu-Gi-Oh formats of recent years. There's no like major FTKs happening, so like Fireball isn't like, ban it, ban it, ban it, it's not here anymore. No hand loops like with Gumblar, no tier 0 formats like Spirals or Zodiacs. But at the same time, there are some small issues that like may or may not need to be tweaked a little bit. So yeah. First, let's talk about Sky Strikers because this is the deck that's been competitive the longest in terms of like what we're going to talk about in this video at least. Sky Strikers are a very powerful control deck. They have access to a lot of resources. They can generate resources with cards like Kagari, Engage, Multi-Roll, and as it happens, those are all cards that a lot of people think are kind of in the chopping block. Now, it's pretty likely that Sky Strikers will be taking a hit, if only because they've been around so long. Konami tends to hit decks, not like they don't usually let decks get about more than a year or so of activity, and it's approaching that point for Sky Strikers. So there's a few different ways that I think Sky Strikers could get hit, and a lot of it depends on how competitive Konami wants the deck to remain after the ban list. Now, personally, I do think that Sky Strikers are strong, but like pretty balanced. Yes, they can get a lot of advantage. Yes, they can definitely, be a lot to deal with for most decks. But I wouldn't have a problem with Sky Strikers remaining fairly competitive. Now, if Konami wanted to completely neuter the deck, they could do something like what the OCG has. That is, Kagari is at 1, Engage is at 2, Widow Anchor is at 2, and of course Hornet Drones is at 1, but it's been like that for a while, so we'll kind of exclude it. That would be one way to make the deck, just kind of like, It would not very good. I don't think it'd be able to compete at that point. Something that I think is especially pertinent is Sky Striker Mobilising Engage. I think that this spell is extremely strong. It's a Rhoda. It can also draw cards, so it kind of turns into this really strong +1. You can activate multiple copies of it in one turn, which is pretty crazy sometimes. At Y6 Atlanta, I played a couple of different Sky Striker decks in both the main event and the side events, and Engage definitely felt like a big game changer in terms of getting the deck the resources it needed, whether early game or mid game, to just constantly keep fighting. But Engage at 1 might be like too much to just like, it might just mean the deck isn't very good anymore. And there's also that whole thing where like Engage is getting reprinted in the new Battles of Legend, Heroes Revenge, I believe it's called. So maybe they wouldn't want to hit Engage because they want people to be able to get it. So it's a chase card in the set. A card I also think is, definitely part of the conversation here then is Multi-Roll. Now, Multi-Roll is, people compare it to Spellbook of Judgment. I don't think it's quite that busted, but I think that in some cases it can feel just as strong or stronger. Multi-Roll, of course, if you don't know, lets you basically take Sky Striker spells in your graveyard and reset them onto your field during each end phase, equal to the number of Sky Striker spells that you activated that turn. So, that can start to feel pretty insane because it means that this deck can grind forever almost. It feels like, recycling Widow Anchors especially and Engages very easily. Multi-Roll, I think, just being out of the picture might be a better way to hit Sky Strikers. I think that the card could get banned, and if Multi-Roll got banned, but everything else stayed the same, I feel like Sky Strikers would actually still be able to be a competitive deck. They would just feel more fair. Sometimes it feels like Multi-Roll is that defining factor where if you can't deal with it pretty quickly, it just starts to overwhelm you with resource cards. I don't particularly think Widow Anchor is a very problematic card, at least not to me. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think that if Multi-Roll were hit, then the whole recycling Widow Anchor so easily wouldn't be a problem. And personally, I don't think Kagari needs to go to 1. That's more of a like, if Konami just hates this deck type of thing, they could put it to 1, but I'm okay with Kagari where it is. For me, it's, Multi-Roll could just go completely and the deck would be fine, or maybe Engage could go to 1, and that would be it. So next is Dangers. Dangers are a huge point of contention right now. Everybody has a different opinion on them, but more and more people are starting to, agree that the cards they're overwhelming. They're a lot. they get you free draws, they get you free summons onto the board, and they deck thin, and they don't have hard once per turns on their hand effects. So it's a lot. And, for a while, I was one of those people who was like, oh, dangers aren't so bad, like whatever. But after playing more and more, just playtesting for events, and then, attending some events lately, it's actually pretty bad. So when it comes to dangers, there's 3 major cards that I think are in the hot seat. The first 2 are kind of interchangeable, and that's Danger Tsuchinoko and Danger Jackalope. Now, these 2 cards, they both have kind of similar effects. Basically, Tsuchinoko, when it gets discarded, is going to summon itself. So no matter what happens when you use Tsuchinoko's effect, it's hitting the field, whether they hit it from your hand or not. And then Jackalope, when it gets discarded, can, summon another danger from your deck. So with these 2, they serve a pretty similar purpose in you're getting a monster out. And I don't think that both need to get hit. I think that'd be extreme. I also don't really know that I would ban one of them. For a while I was thinking that, but I tend to try to avoid just, let's ban this, let's ban that, let's just ban everything. So I think one or the other should go to 1. And then there's Danger Nessie, which of course searches other danger monsters to your hand, which you can then use. So I definitely feel like, Nessie should also go to 1. I think Nessie and Jackalope or Nessie and Tsuchinoko to 1 would be good. I don't think all 3 need to go to 1. I think that's like getting to the point where the danger deck itself doesn't become playable, and I always hate the idea that like a whole deck has to suffer. But these monsters are, they're overwhelming. This is what I would do, and I'd maybe see what happens after that. If it still feels like it's too splashable of an engine, then they can start hitting more. There's still stuff like Mothman, for instance, that people run. So we'll see, but that's where I would start, and then from there, just kind of continue to assess. Next, let's talk about Saryuya. This is a card that I do feel has become a bit of a problem lately. Obviously, the Thunder Dragon, Guard Dragon, Danger deck, it abuses this card pretty hard. Saryuya has existed for a long time, and it's been fine. It's just in recent months that it's kind of gotten out of hand. It doesn't have a hard once per turn in its effect, and that's extreme. That means you can summon multiple, use its effect multiple times. I've even seen some decks that recycle the thing. So sometimes you see like it at 2 in extra decks, or even at 3. I don't think this card needs to get banned though. I think that just limiting Saryuya to 1 would be fine. It's a fair card like at 1. Just being able to use it once makes sense. It does take resources to summon, and it should have an appropriately strong effect. What I like about the effect is that all it really is like an extender or like a hand fixer. This isn't something like Fireball where it's just straight up FTKs, or like Gumblar Dragon where it's ripping cards out of your opponent's hand. So I think it's fine, and also, we've lost a lot of Link 4 monsters. I don't think Saryuya is that bad. I don't think it really needs to go like now. If it's at 1 and people are still abusing it, then yeah, maybe ban it, but I don't think right now it's that bad. So I would just put it to 1, and I think that'd be fine. Next is Thunder Dragon Colossus. I think that this is the card that, a lot of people are also kind of talking about. Maybe it should get limited. I think that would make some sense. Thunder Dragons, yes, I know they haven't won a YCS, but like effectively, they've made a huge impact, and the Danger Thunder deck is extremely powerful. Thunder Dragon Colossus, to me, I don't really like its design as a boss monster. I don't like the idea that the monster simply floodgates your opponent and doesn't, let them play. That's never really fun, but I don't think it needs to get banned, because then like Thunder Dragons lose an important thing. I like the Thunder Dragon deck's design, I just don't like Colossus's design. I think by putting Colossus at 1, Thunder Dragons can still use it, it can still be like an applicable boss monster. It just cuts down on that whole summoning 2 Colossus in 1 turn, or summoning 3 Colossus in 1 turn, because at that point, your opponent now, it's almost hopeless. Like, if there's only 1 Colossus, I can start my turn and use Infinite Impermanence, negate its effect, and then continue playing like normal, or something similar to that. Same with maybe Forbidden Chalice. But once there's like 2, it just starts to get, like what's your opponent supposed to do? There are a lot of decks that when faced with Thunder Dragon Colossus simply have to scoop, as they can't play, and that's no fun. And now if there's only at 1, that can still happen, but it doesn't feel like it would be as oppressive. So yeah, I don't think Thunder Dragons need to lose anything else. They've already had to lose like Brilliant Fusion and Gold Sark and all of that. And this wouldn't fundamentally change the main deck of a Thunder Dragon deck very much. If you want to play pure Thunder Dragons, it'd be good to see people have to use Thunder Dragon Fusion and Titan more often, and do some recycling to get around that whole Colossus thing. But I just don't like the idea of, people summoning multiple copies. That gets a little bit extreme. Another card that has kind of left the conversation, but it definitely is still around, is Summon Sorceress. Now, Summon Sorceress to me is kind of in a funny spot because, we've lost a lot of the powerful Link 4 monsters that Summon Sorceress typically like links up into. So without access to things like Firewall, for instance, anymore, it actually feels like Summon Sorceress isn't overbearing, but it does still extend combos a lot. I'm not sure how I like feel about this card. You know, I haven't thought about it. I think it will still get banned at some point eventually. Like it's just bound to happen. You know, if we want things like Needle Fiber to happen and that type of thing, it just seems like something that's gonna have to happen. Although I wouldn't be surprised if right now it just stuck around for a few more months and then maybe like after Nationals, for instance, they just decide to be done with the card. There's also the Azathoth decks. I think that Elder Entity Azathoth or Outer Entity Azathoth, whatever it's called, I think that that card is pretty strong. It's like a turn skip pseudo FTK. I don't like that type of stuff. It should just go pretty quickly. There shouldn't be a lot of question about it. But I don't think it's Azathoth itself that needs to get hit. I would hit the rank up magic spell. You know, Rusty Bardic, fine. Fair card, you know, it works for Phantom Knights, it sets up plays for them. I think it is balanced in and of itself. It's okay, keep it. Let the Phantom Knights have it. I think that Azathoth isn't bad for how it's supposed to be summoned. It's the rank up spell. So if you ban the rank up spell, like they've done in the past, you can just stop Azathoth from being played. You can stop the true King of All Calamities play that's going to be happening when Dark Neostorm comes out and Orcus get their new Xyz monster, and you can stop Kali Yuga. All that stuff, those monsters are okay. I wouldn't want like them to have to all get banned. I'd rather just the one rank up spell enabler card be banned and then let them stick around. And I think that way, yes, some people who play, a PK rank up deck will lose access to a card, but that's like, the greatest good type of thing. Like you lose one card or lose several cards. I'd rather just lose the one card because even if Azathoth gets banned, there's more stuff like it. So I'd rather just hit the enabler card and then the most amount of people can probably be happy. All right, those are my opinions on the upcoming ban list. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Hopefully, I didn't hit your favorite deck too hard. All right, anyway, hope you enjoyed the vid. Give it a thumbs up. Like I said, subscribe for more videos and join our Team APS Discord. There's a link to that in the description. We talk in there and hang out. It's pretty fun. You can also become a Team APS channel member. It's $4.99 a month. You don't have to do it, but it's a great way to support the channel. And yeah, it's gonna be it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.